Hi, my name is Yancy Galindo, and today I'm on the debating side for pro media.
Hi, I'm Marley Miller, and I'm also on the side for pro media.
Hey, I'm Layla Tucker, and I'm debating on the side of pro government today.
Hello, I'm Gina Harper. I'm also on pro government.
Hi, I'm Emily Hughes. I am the presenter, and today we'll be debating the news media role in politics article. Okay, so the article states that the new media have radically altered the way that government institutions operate, the way that political leaders communicate, and how citizens engage in politics. Overall, it addresses media's role and the consequences for political life. A main argument provided by the article as to why media needs freedom to report on the government is that media serves several essential roles in the democratic society. Their primary purpose is to inform the public, providing citizens with the info needed to make thoughtful decisions about leadership and policy. That the media acts as watchdogs, checking government actions. They set the agenda for public discussion of issues. And lastly, the media helps to facilitate community building by helping people to 1, find common causes, 2, identify civic groups, 3, work towards solutions to societal problems, and overall has created opportunities for more voices to be heard. An argument for pro-government regulation of the media, stated by the article, is that new media disseminates a tremendous amount of political content, but much of the material can be trivial, unreliable, and polarizing. That new media is defined by coverage of a never-ending stream of sensational scandals, be they real, exaggerated, or entirely fabricated, that are only partially related to governing, and that falsehoods infused with tidbits of fact are being passed off as news. And perhaps that with government interference, they can possibly eradicate the fake news epidemic.
So I'd like to start our debate with discussing some of the main questions and points of pro media versus pro government. One of the first questions we should discuss is, why does the media need freedom to report on the government? From the pro media side, it's something in our Constitution, it's part of our First Amendment, and although media has grown and expanded throughout the years online and in print, we the people still have every single right to a freedom of speech and a freedom of press.
Even though I am pro-government, I actually do agree with them just because the First Amendment is needed, and the people do have a right for freedom of speech and freedom of press. So I don't necessarily have an argument against that due to the fact that it is in the Constitution and it is needed.
And lots of people can say, it is right, and while it's not necessarily a need, it is a want. We want to stay aware and we want to stay informed, because sometimes the media or the government can hide they consider unnecessary info, but we have the right to know what's going on, even if to them it may not seem relevant.
While I am also on the pro-government side, I do believe with the two of them, the First Amendment is obviously important since it was established and in the Constitution. It's part of the Bill of Rights, and it's something that we need to feel safe. We want to feel safe when we speak, when we say this, when we do this.
Right, and another topic question that we wanted to focus on was, why does the government need to control media? Now, from the pro media side, I can definitely say fake news is a thing. It happens all the time. Media can sometimes be the bad guy, lobbying citizens, swaying the public, saying anything for views in order to get publicity, to get profit. I could totally understand that from this side.
From the pro-government side, that's basically what my whole topic is about for the most part. Like she said, fake news is a thing. I feel like the media tries to spin things off to reach other people, to catch their eye, I guess. So sometimes they'll come up with I don't really want to say captions, but something to grab their eye and
Propaganda.
Yeah, there we go, propaganda. It promotes a lot of false information, and honestly, I feel like it deepens the social and political divide, and it just erodes the trust of everybody.
Going along with that, I feel like even though sometimes media can spin the truth around and everything like that, sometimes the media is one of the places where you can actually discover the whole story, because sometimes the news won't always report what's really going on, and media uncovers all the negatives and provides the whole truth of things. So that's where usually sometimes people always get their information from, and they can always keep doing their research to make sure this information is correct or not.
A lot of people do get their news from media. A lot of the times, media can be twisted or it's fake. But a lot of things, if government were able to control a lot of that, it would be able to help the flow of what and put out what is fake and what is real. However, I do believe that a lot of things that they put out might not be the whole truth, and it is up to the people, the public, to uncover that.
Yeah, I think as a whole, we can all equally agree that the people do deserve to know what their government is doing, but at the same time, the government can hide stuff from us in order for our own protection.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I feel like the government sometimes doesn't tell everybody it doesn't tell you everything. I mean, there may be a reason for that, and I feel like sometimes social media does help explain things, or even like it dumbs things down for us, just because like we don't always understand what the government is trying to tell us or whatnot. So,
All right, now I think if y'all are ready, we can totally get into the argumentative side of things.
yeah, let's get into it.
So we'll start off with pro-media. Our government can be extremely sketchy from time to time and hide the acts that they're doing in order to gain favor with the public. A quote that I like, it's from the informant literate historian. It says, "Some malicious individuals, organizations, and politicians are piggybacking on the current hysteria, labeling legitimate news as fake in order to advance a particular agenda," which we've seen this multiple times in U.S. history, from the Watergate scandal to the Iran-Contra scandal to the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal, and even probably the most modern example that we can think of would be former President Trump, with all of the sexual allegations that were against him, many from the 1980s, numerous allegations on top of video and tape recordings of him stating phrases that were very derogatory towards women, and he denied all of them, quoting that they were fake news.
Along with that, I wanted to add too that mainly with the media and everything like that, the government side can also lead things to having like a political vacuum, having limiting to just certain perspectives and views, where the government puts out only for certain times or for certain groups of people, so we don't get full access to everything that's going on. It's kind of like a pick your poison type thing.
I would first like to start off by saying that whenever I was writing all this down, I was like, all right, I think I might have chosen the wrong side. Just, I can see where both sides could be argued. But earlier we said that everybody deserves like freedom of speech, freedom of press. So, I mean, it goes for both sides, whether it's pro-media, pro-government, each side deserves like a voice. But some of it's destructive. And most of the time, the media side is destructive just because today there's a lot going on, and I feel like every day you see something where something's going on, something's happening, whether it be like Black Lives Matter or sexual assault or whatever the case may be. And used to be, people would get their news from the newspaper, and then it was the radio and then the TV, and now it's the internet. Societies they need the face-to-face, or they used to need the face-to-face in decision-making, and now it's all mediated. Media heavily influences political figures, opinions, decisions, and it sometimes creates a disconnect between the people and the government. Like I said earlier, the digital political propaganda creates and promotes false information, and it deepens social and political divide, along with eroding trust. Most officials nowadays are kind of careful about what they say, and I say most because two really good examples is Trump's Twitter page. If you look, you see that a lot of it is extremely unprofessional, whereas some articles that I read that Obama and Bush and all of them, they tried to control the press. An older example is the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. whenever FDR was president, they tried to limit the press that was critical of him, and it would not be broadcasted just because they didn't want to put out false information or sometimes even, I guess, negative information.
And this raises a really good question for our arguments is it the responsibility of the press to keep the government's secrets? When you look back in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, you're seeing all these kind of scandals that were kind of hidden behind closed doors. With the Watergate scandal in 72 through 74, you're seeing a president defying the law and breaking the law and the Constitution just to secure a victory, which he did, but ended up stepping down later because the news and the media were able to tell the people what was going on. It's one of those, like, the media is helping the people realize who their main people in charge really are. The same thing with the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal. The president was impeached for perjury and obstruction of justice, and most of the time we probably wouldn't have even known any of that was happening if it weren't for Lewinsky's co-worker Linda Tripp, who she confided in with her affair with the president. And she was the one who gave tapes to news outlets that ended up reporting the scandal for everyone to hear about it and know about it. And the other thing is he denied it to the very end. He denied it in court. He committed perjury himself, but the media was able to get that out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Whenever I was reading up on all this, I saw that most of the time, like for elections, first off, I was wondering if like it actually helped or if it didn't help, like with the elections, because if you look, like with the recent election, not the most recent, the one before that, like compared to Clinton and Trump, you saw that Trump had a lot of like the media, like he was popping on media. I guess really all I can say. And same thing with like whenever Obama was running against what was his name?
Okay.
Yeah, he had a lot of like positive media going out. So I really do feel like sometimes the media can help, but not always, just because sometimes it can put out bad information. Sometimes, I don't feel like it's always truthful, or necessary, because sometimes I feel like anybody can really write an article on the internet. Like unless it's like .org, like anybody can you could write on Wikipedia.
And the best thing is it's up to the people who take this media to heart to check their sources.
Yes.
And it can be shown in like the ignorance
And the
of
thing
the population.
The thing is, I don't think most people do check their
They don't.
sources. Even the important things
The
like these
very
kind of
important
articles,
things.
they probably don't check it, and they're just gonna go by what he said, she said.
It's the whole,
Oh, no.
I'd rather have an educated person who doesn't want to vote than an uneducated voter. That kind of system as well.
I even feel like with the vaccines recently, I feel like that's a really good example of the government versus the media, because regardless of whether you believe in the vaccination or you don't,
There's a lot of information out there, and it gets very confusing. Even I'm very confused with how research is going in terms of the vaccine.
exactly, yeah.
It can create skepticism in the worst way.
It's
Yeah,
hard to find a non-biased source.
Yes.
Too. Even the sources say the professional news stations on the radio, on TV, on the television, they're all biased in some way. It's pretty hard to present, I guess, news in a way that's unbiased.
Our country at this point is definitely so divided that those biases play into everyday media. They play into our elections, they play into our state elections, they play into every part of our political framework at this point.
yeah, I agree. I definitely feel like at this point, the media and the government both have created a lot of division between everybody. At this point, I feel like everybody feels like they're a scientist, I guess. I saw something on Facebook where it was there are men and women who have failed science classes but believe they are scientists and know everything about the vaccine or whatnot. I want to go back to that just because I just realized that was a really good example. Even though I'm vaccinated, I still had doubts, and not everybody's doing the research like they should, whether or not like you don't want to get it or you do. I mean, I don't know, I feel like the media is putting out all this information like, oh, this will happen if you do get it, this will happen if you don't get it, and it's really just creating a divide, and that's where I feel like media really just takes things and makes it negative. So, you got anything to present on our side?
Well, going along with what you were saying about vaccines, I think it definitely does bring a lot of information, and most of it is false. Like you guys were saying, you know, it's about double checking and making sure that, you know, this is the correct source and making sure it comes from actual source, like you said, .org and everything like that. But the media, I think, along with the media and the government, they both, you can tell that there's a lot of hypocrisy going on, especially because the government can put out something and then later on, you know, they're hiding the truth or everything like that. And along with media, they'll put something out, but it could be totally false, or they could backtrack and be like, oh no, this is actually false, don't do this, and blah, 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 blah. So I think it's definitely, both these sources aren't to be trusted, and it's always, you know, going back, making sure you do your own research as an individual, because at the end of the day, you're the one you're supposed to be concerned about.
Exactly.
And I think we all can agree that the government needs to be able to keep something secret in its intelligence operations and very sensitive work, especially like during times of war. That kind of information does not need to be leaked to the public, and that's the whole thing where the media kind of becomes the bad guy almost, is where they know they're not supposed to tell people, they do it anyway.
Yeah.
It is part of their, I guess, their job to do that, but sometimes taking orders from higher and the security of your country is more important than getting that job done.
I mean, I definitely understand that, like, the government does not need to lay all their cards out on the table. Like, why would you do that whenever they're, like, in this time of day, anything that goes on is broadcasted. Like, you know, anybody from any country can see what's going on. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like, why would you lay out all your cards on the table? And you're right whenever you say, like, media then decides to be like, all right, well, the government's not putting this out, so let the people know what's going on. And I mean, as a journalist, that is their job. It's just what is the quality of it? Is it truthful? Is it, yeah.
Or is it a bunch of crap, I guess is the word.
Yeah, I think we can conclude the debate with the idea that the people do deserve to know the truth, but most of the time the population can't handle the truth with some of the stuff that the government is exploring and discovering and hiding from us to keep us safe. In the end, it all makes sense. I mean, the government is here to protect us, but it's kind of like at the expense of what? Our freedoms and our rights are kind of being just taken away a little bit. Freedom of press, freedom of speech kind of deal, in order for the majority of the population, the benefit of the population.
I definitely agree.
Any concluding statement?
I think the biggest thing is, I think we all can agree that you definitely should check your sources, regardless of whether you believe that the media is putting out truthful information or if you believe the government. Just check your sources regardless. There's a reason why the government doesn't put out everything, and shouldn't believe everything that you see on the internet.
Thank you guys.